Folks, welcome back inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3733 East Broadway. This is hour number 2 of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. We can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today, and what an honor to bring in a cat who is still burning on the bandstand internationally and within the TV studios and within his own collaborations. Tremendous human being and great bass player, Gene Perla. Welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hi, Jake.
Hi, bud. How you doing, man?
Everything's cool, man. Everything's cool so far.
What's so funny is that we're calling people via Skype, and we were calling the 212 number, but the old memory within Skype kept calling Leland Sklar because he was on in hour 1. So we kept pissing his wife off. We're like, is Gene there? She's like, no, this is Lee. This is Lee. You keep calling Lee. I'm okay, fine. We restarted it. Now we got Gene Perla on the phone.
Yeah, cool.
Hey, I just want to ask you, Gene, about, I've been very focused on this, the idea of a drummer playing on the top of the kit to keep time, as opposed to being completely reliant on the bass drum, or in today's world, the double bass drum. And I just wanted you to talk about how, when you were coming up, how the drummers that you were playing with specifically were really essentially keeping time on the cymbals and using the bass drum as a punctuator.
Yeah, I would probably say that. I haven't really thought about that much, because whenever I was playing with these different drummers, I was trying to stay on top of what I was doing and make it fit with them. And I don't really recall that I, checked out drummers from that perspective. But as I think about it, yeah, I mean, I guess the best example I could give you is when I did join Elvin, I was trying to figure out where the beat was, and it took me months to figure it out, to really be confident about it, and I wound up in the end paying attention to his ride cymbal.
Can you talk about, as best you can, because like when I talk to all the cats, I mean, Rick Murata, Steve Gadd, the drummers specifically, they grew up, I mean, you could pick out those drummers right away based on their time. The time feel was different. How did you find the beat? How did you find the pulse with Elvin? What were the clues along the way until you finally felt like you were really confident?
Well, that's come up not very often in my life, especially after achieving, at least from my perspective, that I was really able to pretty much get inside of Elvin's beat and be there with him, and he paying attention to mine. It really hasn't come up that much since then, but not too long ago, within the last couple of years, I had the great opportunity to play with Jeff Tane Watts. And that kind of threw me back into that thing, because Jeff is a complicated, he fills up the space a lot with a lot of stuff going on. And what I noted was I was kind of trying to figure out, what he was doing and try and fit, and I didn't feel like I was getting in there exactly right. And then a certain gig came along where I said to myself, you know what, the hell with this. I'm just going to play where I think the beat is. And you know what was interesting? We locked together. Boom, just like that. So it really, I think what I have to say is it's up, in my particular case, it was up to me to say, hey, this is where I think it is, and then it would seem to work. So
you make it sound so easy, but it's not. Can you talk about playing with Nussbaum? I mean, you made a reference about how, how his vocabulary on the drum kit, and you guys just came back playing with Liebman. Can you talk a little bit about, to me, rhythm sections were the reason why vocabulary in all music was growing at a certain period, and it's one reason I think that it stifled a lot of vocabulary music in modern day, because we don't have these rhythm sections that can really play free while still locking the groove. And I just wanted you to talk about the musical relationship you have with Adam Nussbaum.
It's interesting that so many years went by, and I, of course, became aware of Adam, and I saw him play once, decades ago, but I never really had an opportunity to play with him until 2014. And I have described to people in multiple occasions that playing with him, I feel like I'm sitting on a very comfortable couch. I just feel, ensconced in this comfort, and that I'm really in my own world. I don't have to think about anything because the pulse is right there, and I hear him reacting to what's going on around him, and yet he's right there as I try and lay down the center,
In the live feel, in the live context, can you talk about the tour that you were on and the kind of groove that you were able to... Here's the difference. There's a very fine line. You see it more than I do because you're on the Northeast and you're around the world, you're playing. There's a fine line with younger cats. I was just up in Phoenix at the Nash Theater watching the Monk Institute go through each period of jazz, and there's this really fine line between being very wonkish and having a bunch of nerdy guys in the crowd, sort of being like, wow, that was really all those chord changes and all this stuff, being that versus either tapping your foot or just getting down to the music. And can you talk fundamentally about how you have struck that balance, not just with Liebman and Nussbaum, but throughout the years? I mean, you listen to Stone Alliance, you listen to you and John Hicks, it doesn't matter, you and Jan Hammer. The stuff is, you can still tap it gets wonkish. How do you strike the balance between being wonkish and being able for people to shake their butt?
It's interesting as you're going through that description. It just through something that happened very early on. And in fact, even before I decided that I wanted to be a jazz musician, I went, as a student at the University of Toledo in Ohio, I went to a concert one night in Toledo, and it featured two big bands, Stan Kenton Orchestra and the Count Basie Orchestra. And Stan came on first, and the forceful, intricate, involved arrangements of his and the blaring, blasting of the horns were marvelous to listen to. It was enjoyable and so forth and so on. And then right after the break, the Count Basie band set up, and they started playing like this medium tune. I don't remember if it was a blues or what, and Freddie Green is going ka-chunk, 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 and the groove was so hard, man. It's like I totally forgot about Stan Kenton's band. So I've gravitated towards that, that feeling. To me, it's the heartbeat. It's our motions with sex. There's a driving pulse of some kind to try and achieve something or, go along with. And so I've always gravitated towards the beat. And when I came to New York and had a couple of different lofts, and we'd have jam sessions, around the clock, that was the period where Ornette broke through. So now the avant-garde or the free jazz movement opened up, and there would be places where people would be jamming and they'd be playing free jazz. That's what they did,
Right.
But in my lofts, we played time. That's it. Not necessarily following chords or a pattern of chords. Sometimes we just make up stuff, but the center was get that beat going, because to me it's like you're walking down the street. You got a beat going. It's so many things in life is a pulse, and I think that's what people sense. Another thing that I've sensed is when that pulse is not smooth, people may not realize what's going on because they're not paying attention, or they don't know about music, or they don't think about music in that way. But yet when it's not happening, I've noticed in situations that I've been in, the difference between a groove that's a happy groove, even if it's an up-tempo burner, to me it's still a happy feeling, as opposed to when it's not, the rhythm section is not clicking, essentially between the bass player and the drummer, and I just look out and I can just sense from the people, they don't know what's going on, but it's not comfortable. There's something in the air or in the vibrations, which of course are in the air, that it just doesn't get to them. And when there is a happy groove, you can see it. You can see them tapping. You can see the facial expressions change, and so forth and so on.
Talking to Gene Perla live on Power Talk 1210. I've talked to quite a few cats since our last conversation, and I just wanted you to talk about, it could be with any player, any drummer that you worked with, current or before, but can you talk about the how important the bass, the playing the bass with the bass drum, finding it, the clicking, the happy groove between the bass drum sound and the bass itself, and how you don't want to necessarily land on that spot at the same time?
Well, I'm going to revert back to Count Basie and the name I just mentioned, Freddie Green, playing the guitar. I mean, all he did for decades was ka-chunk, 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 right? He just beat that time. You get somebody who's doing that, it's fine. It's when Buddy Rich, for instance, when I work with him, that bass drum is going on every beat, dang, 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 but it wasn't a groove for me because it was so mechanical. I didn't get the feeling of having a groove. To me, the beat has to breathe like we breathe. And so, yeah, I don't know. Did I answer the question?
It's. I wish I had the quote pulled up here. It's just the to me, it's like that's the swing. That's where the swinging quality comes into play. So hard. And can you talk? You mentioned to me in an email that you were going to start a band. I forget the name of the band. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, well, back when I was with Elvin, it was called the Elvin Jones Group, and then I believe his wife, Keiko, came up with the idea of changing the name to Elvin Jones Jazz Machine. And I still have some T-shirts with that stuff on it.
Yeah.
And so I decided last year, I guess around the middle of the year, I said, I want to try something else. And so I put together a classic quartet, saxophone, trumpet, piano, bass, and drums, and put a band of young people together. And we're playing just my music alone. And so somehow I said, well, what am I going to call this thing? And I kind of tied it back to Elvin's group name, so it's called the Gene Machine.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. We're in the midst of mixing. It should be coming out in the next few weeks. It should be available. So
I guess I'm curious. I'd love you to talk about your leadership with younger cats. I mean, how much of it is, we talked about it being a very visceral feeling. And my generation at 38 and younger have really been growing up with a lot of digital music crunched into their ears. And, I'm curious about if you could talk about some nonverbal leadership on the bandstand or even in the studio with the cats that you're surrounding yourself with in the Gene Machine.
I will sort of answer that by
just riff on it. Yeah, just riff.
Yeah. By initially saying that I worked with Sonny Rollins for close to a year. I worked with Elvin for multiple years. I worked with Thad Jones' big band. I've played with a lot of different people, and I will tell you that the higher the music level was, at least from my estimation, the less was being said about the music. And in fact, with Sonny, I was with him close to a year, Sonny Rollins, we had not one conversation about music. In fact, we hardly said anything to each other in that time.
I love it. What about the R word, the rehearsal? Did you have any rehearsals?
Oh, yeah, sure. We had a bunch of rehearsals, and that's where we got the music together. And maybe somebody would say something. I don't recall that, in particular. But it was the same thing with Sarah Vaughan or Nina Simone. Of course, we would rehearse, especially if we were going to go into the studio. And Nina had more specific things that she wanted, so she would verbalize them. But most of the other people that I played with, whether live or recording, there was very little said about the music. It was up to us to interpret. So now swinging my attention to this new quintet, I could have, I think, and when I first started out, I started using seasoned players that had been on the scene for a while, for years. And there wasn't much to be said about the music because they had so much experience. I throw a chart in front of them and they would play it, and it would be fine. But I decided to try, and it happened through a series of circumstances that, I found a piano player and a drummer on a gig, and I was very impressed with what they were doing. So we built that trio in my mind. And then there was a fellow who was playing trumpet. There was a student in one of my ensembles at school, and he's a young man who's got a very bright approach to the music. He can swing, and he thinks about melody and space. And then I ran into, through the piano player and the drummer, this young lady who plays saxophone, and she's tearing it up. But all of them, to varying degrees, don't have that much experience, and I can hear that, I can sense that in them. But they're hungry, they want to do it, they're 100% into it, and they rise to a level that is sufficient for me to express my music. So I'm happy as a clam.
No, but this is important. When you say they don't have a lot of experience, meaning they haven't been raised in academia to learn music. I mean, I'm just convinced that it's very hard to grow the vocabulary of any music in academia. Is that kind of what you're getting at? These guys are more street scholars than anything else?
No, they all went to music school. All of them.
All of them did.
School. Okay. Yeah, they all went to music school to varying degrees. I think maybe one of them didn't finish, or maybe two of them. But they were educated, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, what the hell? Back in the day, I went to Berkeley, and if I hadn't, I probably would have taken me many more years to absorb the understanding of harmony and building melodies and so forth. But being in the school and being in a situation where I had to produce certain things in order to pass get a grade of reasonable value, I had to get into these things and learn. So for me, it was one of the greatest things for me to go to Berkeley.
But I think
the
lessons. Harvey Mason was just doing call and response with Alan Dawson. You and Levine had a Latin band. There were gigs everywhere. I'd love you to talk about, honestly, a true learning experience within the buildings of Berkeley. To me, your sound, your individuality, it came from being on the bandstand. Bottom line, those gigs.
No, I would say that there was something that was more powerful in my development. And it actually happened in the very first class, the first semester that I was there. We took a class that was called Four-Way Close. And I don't know if you know what that is.
Break it down,
Yeah, all right. So it's a melody line of a standard tune they would give us, mostly from the American songbook, okay? And they would give you the melody with the chords, and the exercise would be, it's a simple exercise. If you have the melody and you want to harmonize it with three other notes below the melody, what are the notes that you can use? Well, if the note of the melody is a chord tone of that particular measure or whatever space, then that's pretty simple because there are three notes, and that's, we know 4-note chords, so we knew that much.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's a passing tone, what notes, those three notes, what do you do? What are those three other passing notes going to the next chord tone? So, that was the exercise. And so I did one. It was a lot of learning in one class because, first of all, I'd do this stuff on piano, work it out, on the harmony, and write it out as best as I could. Then I had to turn around and write the parts out by transposing for 2 altos and 2 tenors, saxophones, and write out their parts and then take it into class. And that first time, this early in the semester, I did this for, I think it was I Could Write a Book was the tune. And I passed out the parts, and those guys, when they played it, they were all good readers, and they played it. And when I heard that the first time, I said to myself, man, I got a lot of power here. I can write stuff. And it was, so that's what I really focused on was understanding harmony, being able to write arrangements, and to me that was, I think, the strongest thing that I got out of education. Sure, jam sessions, all that stuff is good, but that just went on and on forever. But out of the school, that's what I really learned, to be able to write music, and it gave me the foundation to keep going all these 40, 50 years.
You're still cooking along. I mean, did you ever get a chance to play in the motherland of Africa?
Yes, we put a trio together called the Fine Wine Trio. Yeah. We started
break it down, man. Break it down.
Yeah, you like that one.
I
right?
love
like
it.
That
Yeah.
one. Because the drummer, who's also a singer, and he's one of the few guys that can sing really well and play the drums at the same time. His name is Bobby Cap. His legal name is Robert Kaplan, and he and I went to Berkeley together, and then he moved to New York, and he kind of spent a lot of time with the Outsiders. He played with Archie Shepp, Marion Brown,
I
made
love
a bunch
this.
of recordings, yeah. Damn. So anyway, we hooked up like decades later, and I didn't realize the guy was a singer, So we were on this gig, and I said, "Wow, man, let's do something." So we got in touch with Richard Wyans. You familiar with that
Dude,
name?
Richard, I did a ridiculous interview with that cat. Berkeley High cat. Yeah, badass. And then Kenny Burrell, too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart on top of that. Anyway,
he's a great guy,
we put a trio together, and we did a demo for the State Department, and we won. We became one of 6 jazz ambassador groups that year, and they sent us to Africa 6 weeks, 1 week in 6 different countries, although Richard didn't want to travel. He was, older, and said, so we got Rob Bargad on piano to play with us, who also sang, and we were doing a couple of things there, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, Africa.
Can you talk about, you were there for a long enough time to experience where in Africa were you, by the way?
Oh, now you're going to ask me, right? Rwanda.
Is it south? Were you
Egypt?
Wow, so you were in the northern. What was striking to you about, did you ever go out into the culture and just become immersed within the odd metered music? I mean, what was striking about that? I mean, so many of the cats I've interviewed wouldn't go. Ahmad Jamal wouldn't go play there because of apartheid. Obviously, but was there anything striking about being in that culture and how the music is truly part of that culture? Whereas here it used to be, but now it's like almost suppressed to a degree. The culture's been pushed out of the streets and into these, wine and, these clubs. And I just wanted you to talk about any kind of, you were there I didn't realize you were there for 6 weeks. That's a long time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So come on, give me the question again.
The question is a transcendent indigenous musical experience in Africa, like not a gig, but where you just were out experiencing some dude playing the tambourine in the meter of 17 or something.
Yeah, well, we went out whenever we possibly could. The 3 of us, all of us were very interested to get immersed in whatever, not necessarily music, but of course, if there was something music happening, we'd want to hear it. We were in Morocco, and we're down south. Casablanca, right? We were there, and we were walking home from somewhere, and we heard this music, and we went into this club, and they were playing their music, man, with this percussion stuff and a chick singing, and we had to pay attention to figure out, what the hell are they doing? What's the form? What's going on with these songs? So that was always, top priority. But not only that, we were very interested to experience whatever we could. I mean, in Rwanda, we went to, it was the brand new, they were just building the, I don't know what you're going to call it, a museum or, something about the, all the death that happened there those years.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the stuff we saw there was was quite shocking. And we went to we'd go to we walked in a spice shop one time, and there was stuff in there that you wouldn't see in the United States, I don't think anywhere. So it was culture not only in the music but whatever, and any opportunity that we would have, if we were invited to be with the locals, we'd go. Because it's how you doing? How are you living? What's the food like? Well, and of course, music was always a topic of conversation. So it was a great experience.
I love that. Gene, I just wanted to ask you about. You just connected me with recently with Steve Grossman, and I kind of wanted you to talk about your advice, what you would talk to people listening around the world if they are looking to create their own individual sound. What are in this day and age? What are some of the things? Maybe they have the rudiments down, maybe they don't, but they want to create their own individual voice. What are some of the tenets that you would give to them? What are some of the things that you would recommend they do?
Boy, oh boy.
And I'm talking about unplugging, not like basically one of the things just be the saturation of unplugging from YouTube is first thing. Just stop in that sense. So let's say they don't have let's say they want to unplug. What would be some of those natural things to develop an individual sound?
I'm not really sure what you're saying about the YouTube thing, but I have some thoughts about YouTube.
Well, no, the thing what I'm saying is that there's a deluge. We are saturated with information. You want to look up Gene Perla, you can find him anywhere. You guys were in so many ways. You'd have to listen to a tune on the radio. There was no opportunity for you to hit rewind. You hear it one time, you have to learn it. So I'm just saying today there's just so much information and that there's so much comping going on. I'm just talking about how do you find your individual voice. That just some basic tenets from Gene Perla.
I don't know if it's an individual voice. I've had this conversation with Liebman a couple of times, in that there's no place else to go. With everything that's been done, I mean, the only things that appear to be available in terms of experimenting and trying to put things together is putting different instruments together, and as well putting different genres or styles of music, fusing them. Those things are good. But I think that given the capability of producing something that is good, whatever the hell that means, but something that's good,
yeah,
people will respond to it and like it. It doesn't have to be something new. I don't think so, because first of all, it's very hard. But I do want to say something about YouTube in terms of when I came up, and I may have said this in the last interview, there were two schools for jazz, North Texas State and Berkeley. That's it. And now as you look around the planet, they're everywhere. Everywhere. At the university level, private schools, in pretty much every country, there's some kind of jazz education going on. And with the magnitude of what's available on YouTube, any young person can go and see pretty much anybody, watch them, or at least listen to them, and like you say, rewind and check it out, and rewind and check it out, and mimic and practice and transcribe and do all this work. Now you've got Joey Alexander. Now you've got who's that kid from England? From England who sings all those parts and plays all the instruments. This is a major talent, this guy. So I think that YouTube has given the young people the opportunity to absorb all the history, and Joey Alexander, I don't know if he's doing anything new. What I've heard, I haven't really spent that much time with him, but I've listened to a number of his things. I wouldn't call his music new. I would call it that he does it really great. That's what I think,
Could you just talk up to the audience about an inspiring thing that in 2016 or this year that you've witnessed on the bandstand or just in general? I just think it's a time when I feel so blessed to be able to talk to you guys, and I've built this sort of thing out of, it's been a cottage industry and it's grown on its own. But
it's great.
It is, but can you talk about what's inspired Gene Perla? Some event or some live performance or anything?
Well, I don't get out there that much very often, and I'm so busy with all my projects.
Yeah, no, I mean like something like that. That could have been your project. Doesn't have to be something you witnessed.
No, I understand. Yeah, I was just describing. I just, I'm so busy with stuff that I hardly ever go out to hear music. I don't really watch TV at all, so I don't see that stuff. I do sometimes at the end of the day. What I'll do is I'll relax, maybe have a glass of wine or something, and I'll put on YouTube and I'll bounce around to hear stuff. Okay, so but I don't do it that much, But I have to tell you this, from my perspective, New Light, which we just played a concert in Chile, the curator of the festival, who's been doing it for 10 years. I asked him, so after the show was over, and I have it up on our website, his direct quote. I said, what did you think about the band? He said, this is the best jazz I've heard in 10 years. Now, for a curator of a major South American festival to say something like that about our band, there's got to be something going on. And I'm convinced that this is one super, super band that needs some that we hope will get wider recognition. Yeah. I
mean, without putting your ego aside, I mean, people have monster chops. Did he explain why what was his reasoning behind that? He obviously knows what he's hearing. What do you think he was hearing that made him say that?
From my perspective, me sitting on Nussbaum's couch and us laying down a beat that's undeniable, because those guys, those two saxophone players, they can play whatever they want. That beat is going.
I love it. Is there material on YouTube for New Light? Is there stuff up?
Okay. There's three things. The first thing we did in 2014, that's kind of like a little promo thing, that's out there, and then we've got one piece, not so long piece from the festival in Chile, and then another short piece of Liebman's playing beautiful melody, and I'm working on a third and probably final one from Chile, which is one of my blues, which I'm just putting some pictures together, and should be out in another week or so.
All right, we'll have to check that out. Gene, we'll do this again later this year, man.
Cool, man.
I love talking to you, man. All the best to you, brother.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, and I'm so happy you connected with Grossman.
Oh, just now I got to find him again, but we'll get it out there. Much love, man. And is that singer drummer still around, Cap?
Yeah, and in fact, I was going to Mexico probably for 5 or 6 years in a row, mostly over the Christmas holidays, and there's a Cuban piano player living down there. It's Gabriel Hernandez. Man, this guy's like, those Cuban piano players, they're ridiculous,
Oh, well, I know.
Anyway,
yeah, but if the drummer's still, I'd love to talk to that cat too. Get some more.
Yeah. Oh man, this guy he's great. I can put you in touch with him. He comes up to San Francisco, so you'd probably be able to. Just drop me an email so I won't forget.
I will. I'll get this. I'll get a copy of this out to you. Thanks for dropping knowledge on us today, man.
Yeah, well, it was about 2 or 3 years ago I stopped going there, but he just called me about 2 weeks ago, and he says, "Hey, let's put the Fine Wine Trio together. Come on down. We're going to do a gig in Mexico City." So I'm going down there in April.
Oh, that's okay. So the Fine Wine, the relevancy is there. We're going to hit it.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. Talk to you soon, Gene.
All the best.
Love
Bye,
you, bud.
Jay.
Thank you, bud.
Bye.
Bye. Well, we got new digs here on Power Talk, 1210 3733 East Broadway. It's a nice studio, and we had a great show today. Long show. Lee Sklar, Marco Benevento, finished with Gene Perla. Thanks to Mike Roper. We'll be back next week. Until then, take care.
Playing blues for quite a while. I've been around the world a few times, but I don't understand. I just like to play the blues. It's not all the money that I want. I just like to play the blues. And I like for everybody to get together and all of us play the blues. Let's have a good time. Because blues is where it's at. I'm telling you, I love it. I can't help but play it. So when you wake up in the morning,
A gig.
and ain't got no money, or no gig, whatever you call it,